Back in her small apartment later that night, Gia curled on her bed, her heart heavy. Her grandmother's words echoed like a warning. The brighter the flame, the easier it burns. And Chanwoo's world was nothing if not fire. She whispered into the silence, "What am I doing?" Meanwhile, in his penthouse high above the city, Chanwoo stared at his phone as messages from his manager flooded in. Questions about the photos, demands for explanations. But all he could think about was Gia. Not the cameras, not the rumors, just her. The storm began the next morning. Gia arrived at the cafe only to find co-workers whispering, their eyes darting toward her phone screen. Customers lingered near the counter, scrolling and glancing at her with thinly veiled curiosity. On the news sites, splashed across headlines and gossip blogs, were grainy photos of her and Chanwoo by the river, his arm around her. Her face turned shyly toward him. Chanwoo's secret girlfriend? Mystery woman in late-night rendezvous. Gia's chest tightened as if the walls were closing in. By midday, a manager pulled her aside, frowning. "Gia, this is bad for business. Reporters are already calling, and customers are asking questions. I think it's best if you take some time off." Her heart sank. "You're firing me?" "Not exactly," he said, avoiding her eyes. "But you understand. This isn't the kind of attention we want here." Gia stood frozen, her apron clutched in her trembling hands. She had always kept her head down, done her work quietly. Now, overnight, she was a scandal. When she stepped outside, blinking back tears, a familiar black car was waiting. The door opened, and Chanwoo stepped out, ignoring the stares of the crowd. He walked straight to her, his presence so commanding that the whispers hushed instantly. "Come with me," he said firmly. "Chanwoo, He didn't give her a chance to argue. He reached for her hand, warm and steady, and guided her into the car. As the city fell away behind tinted glass, Gia's voice broke. "You don't understand. I lost my job. Everyone's staring. They're laughing at me." "Enough," he interrupted gently. His eyes softened as he looked at her. "You're not safe like this. I won't let them tear you apart." Her heart raced as she realized the determination in his tone. "Where are you taking me?" "Home," he said simply. When the car rolled past iron gates and up a winding drive, Gia pressed her face to the window, stunned. The mansion rose before her like something out of a dream, grand, secluded, its windows glowing warmly against the dusk. "I can't stay here," she whispered as they stepped inside. Overwhelmed by marble floors, tall ceilings, and walls lined with art. "You can and you will," Chanwoo replied. "At least until this dies down." "But," "No buts." His voice was firm, but his eyes betrayed something softer, fear. "If they know where you live, reporters will hound you, strangers will come knocking. Here, no one can touch you. Here, you're safe." Gia's chest tightened as she looked around the lavish room. Safe, yes, but also trapped. Her grandmother's voice echoed in her heart. "Be careful of cages, even the golden ones." Still, as Chanwoo gently guided her to a seat and placed a blanket over her shoulders, she couldn't deny the truth. For the first time since the photos leaked, she could breathe again. And for the first time, she wondered if she was afraid of the world outside or of what it meant to be so close to him inside. The mansion was silent that night, the kind of silence that pressed against the walls. Gia wandered the vast living room, her footsteps echoing softly on polished marble. She had never seen such a place outside of movies. Sweeping staircases, chandeliers dripping with crystal, bookshelves taller than her grandmother's house. And yet, instead of feeling like a princess in a palace, Gia felt small, out of place. When she turned, she found Chanwoo leaning against the doorway, watching her. "You're quiet," he said gently. "I don't belong here," Gia admitted. Her voice cracked as she twisted her hands nervously. "I'm just me. I serve coffee. I ride a bicycle. This isn't my world." Chanwoo crossed the room slowly, his steps unhurried, his eyes locked on hers. "And yet," he said, stopping just a breath away, "you're here, in my world, And I can't imagine it without you now. Jia's heart stuttered. She wanted to step back, but her body wouldn't move. His presence was too warm, too close, too overwhelming. "Chan Wu," she whispered, her grandmother's warnings clashing with the racing of her pulse. He lifted a hand, brushing a loose strand of hair from her face with surprising gentleness. "You don't see yourself clearly, Jia. You think you're ordinary. But to me," his voice softened, "you're the most real thing I've ever known." Before she could respond, his lips were on hers. The kiss was not demanding, not arrogant like she had feared. It was slow, searching, as though he was asking a question he didn't dare voice aloud. Jia's eyes fluttered shut, her breath catching as the world tilted beneath her. For a heartbeat, she kissed him back. And then, with a gasp, she pulled away, pressing a trembling hand to her lips. "No, this is wrong. I shouldn't." Chan Wu's expression faltered, pain flickering in his eyes. But he didn't reach for her again. Instead, he stepped back, his voice low and steady. "Then I'll wait," he said simply, "however long it takes. But know this, Jia. I'm not letting you go." Jia's heart pounded so loudly she thought he could hear it. She turned away, clutching the blanket tighter around herself, torn between the safety of her grandmother's teachings and the dangerous sweetness of what she had just felt. Upstairs, in the lonely quiet of her guest room, she lay awake replaying that kiss over and over, her lips still tingling, her chest aching with confusion. And across the hall, Chan Wu sat alone in the dark, his resolve hardening. He had crossed the line once. Next time, he would not stop. The sun spilled into the mansion through tall windows, filling the grand halls with soft golden light. Jia stirred awake in the guest room, her heart pounding before she even opened her eyes. The kiss. She sat up abruptly, pressing her fingers to her lips. It had been gentle, almost reverent, nothing like the careless passion she feared from men in the city. And yet, it had shaken her to the core. What have I done? When she finally emerged from her room, she found a long dining table set for two. At the head sat Chan Wu, dressed in a crisp white shirt, sipping coffee as though it were the most ordinary morning in the world. He looked up, a slow smile tugging at his lips. "Good morning." Jia hesitated in the doorway. "You didn't have to do all this." "I wanted to," he said simply, gesturing for her to sit. "Besides, it's unfair for me to eat alone in a house this big." Reluctantly, she sat across from him. The breakfast spread was like something out of a hotel: steaming dumplings, rice porridge, fresh fruit, and pastries. Jia nibbled at her food, trying to ignore how Chan Wu's gaze kept lingering on her. Her cheeks burned. "Why are you looking at me like that?" "Because you're trying very hard to pretend nothing happened last night," he replied smoothly, setting his cup down. Jia's fork froze midair. You don't have to answer," he said softly, leaning forward. "But don't deny it, Jia. You felt it too." Her breath hitched, and she quickly lowered her gaze, her grandmother's voice whispering warnings in her head. After breakfast, Chan Wu insisted on showing her around the mansion. She protested, but he was relentless, leading her through grand hallways, past his private library, his music room, even the lush gardens outside. Everywhere they went, Jia felt more out of place. Yet Chan Wu seemed determined to draw her in. At the library, he plucked a book from the shelf and handed it to her. "You love stories, don't you? You should feel at home here." In the music room, he sat at the piano and played a soft melody, watching her with quiet intensity as though the song was meant only for her. At the garden, he strolled beside her, hands in his pockets, asking questions about her childhood, her grandmother, her dreams, listening as though her every word mattered. For Jia, it was overwhelming. The mansion was no longer just a place of safety. It was becoming a trap, filled with Chan Wu's presence in every corner. That evening, Jia stood on the balcony, the city lights twinkling in the distance. She wrapped her arms around herself, conflicted. Behind her, she heard footsteps. Chan Wu joined her, silent for a long moment before speaking. "I know you're scared," he said quietly, "but I'm not asking you to be anything you're not. Just stay." Gia turned to him, her eyes wide, her chest tight. His gaze was steady, his words simple, but she could feel the weight behind them. And though she said nothing, the silence between them hummed with something unspoken, something that neither of them could ignore much longer. The days in the mansion stretched like threads of silk, long, delicate, and shimmering with tension. Gia told herself she was only there for safety, that once the gossip faded, she would leave. But every time Chanwoo entered the room, her resolve trembled. One evening, Gia found herself in the library, a book open but unread in her lap. She stared at the page, but her mind replayed the way Chanwoo's hand had brushed hers at breakfast, how his eyes lingered too long when she laughed, how his voice softened when he spoke only to her. Her heart raced at the memory of his kiss, the first and only kiss of her life. It had been tender, patient, and yet it awakened something inside her that frightened her as much as it thrilled her. Her grandmother's voice urged her to stay pure, untouched, cautious. But her body whispered otherwise, urging her closer to the man who had changed everything. That night, she found him in the music room, seated at the piano, the soft melody filling the silence. He looked up when she entered, surprise flashing in his eyes. "Couldn't sleep?" he asked. Gia shook her head, moving closer, her voice barely a whisper. "I keep thinking about things I don't understand." He studied her face, sensing her unease. "What kind of things?" She swallowed hard, her cheeks flushing. "About you. About us." For once, Chanwoo didn't tease. He closed the piano lid gently and stood, walking toward her slowly, giving her time to retreat. But she didn't. She held her ground, though her hands trembled at her sides. When he reached her, his hand hovered near her cheek, hesitant. "Gia." His voice was low, strained with restraint. "You don't know what you're asking for." Her wide, innocent eyes lifted to his. "I know that I want to be close to you, even if I don't know how." The air between them thickened. Chanwoo's hand finally touched her face, his thumb brushing her skin. Gia leaned into the warmth, her breath catching as she tilted her head, waiting. Their lips hovered a whisper apart, the moment burning hotter than any kiss could. Gia's heart pounded, her whole body aching with a new, frightening desire. But just before their mouths met, Chanwoo drew back with a shuddering breath, his hands gripping her shoulders as if holding himself in place. "No," he whispered harshly, though his eyes blazed with the same longing she felt. "Not like this. Not until you're ready. I won't take from you what you don't fully understand." Gia's lips trembled, torn between relief and disappointment. "But what if I want to understand?" His jaw clenched, his restraint barely holding. He turned away, running a hand through his hair. "Then, Gia, one day you'll have to show me. Because if I start, I won't be able to stop." Her breath caught, her body alive with heat, her innocence colliding with a craving she never knew she could feel. That night, lying awake in her bed, she realized something terrifying. She wanted him. Not just his protection, not just his kindness. She wanted him. Gia woke that morning restless, her mind replaying the almost kiss from the night before. She had lain awake for hours, heat rushing through her body, her lips tingling with the memory of what almost happened. She told herself she was foolish. She told herself she was too innocent, too sheltered to feel such things. And yet, when she heard the soft notes of the piano drifting down the hall, her feet carried her toward him without thought. Chanwoo sat at the piano, his shirt unbuttoned at the collar, the morning light catching on his sharp features. He didn't notice her at first, his fingers lost in a slow, aching melody. "Good morning," Gia whispered. He looked up, startled, and for a moment, his guarded expression faltered. "Gia." His voice was softer than usual, almost relieved. "I didn't think you'd come." She moved closer, her heart hammering. "Last night, when you stopped." He tensed, closing the piano lid with a snap. "I told you you weren't ready. I won't push you." Her breath trembled. "But what if I want to push myself?" Before he could respond, she leaned forward and pressed her lips to his. The kiss was clumsy, hesitant, her first attempt at boldness. But it was real and it was hers. Chanwoo froze for a heartbeat, then groaned softly, cupping her face with trembling hands. This time he didn't stop. The kiss deepened, slow and burning, every second a war between restraint and hunger. Jia's innocence made her movements uncertain, but her need was clear. She wanted him, truly wanted him, and Chanwoo could no longer pretend he didn't feel the same. When they finally broke apart, breathless, Chanwoo pressed his forehead to hers. "Jia, do you even understand what you're doing to me?" Her wide, tear-bright eyes met his. "I just know I don't want to run from you anymore." The ringing of her phone shattered the moment. Jia flinched, pulling back quickly as the screen lit up with her grandmother's number. Her stomach dropped. She answered with shaking hands. "Grandma, are you okay?" Her grandmother's voice was weak, strained. "Chill, Dee, I didn't want to worry you, but I haven't been well. The doctor says I should rest." But a soft cough interrupted her words. "I miss you." Tears pricked Jia's eyes. I'll come right away." "No," her grandmother whispered. "Don't rush. Just take care of yourself, F2. The call ended, leaving Jia trembling, torn between two worlds. Her heart pounding with new desire for Chanwoo, and her soul aching for the woman who raised her. Chanwoo reached for her hand, his voice steady but troubled. "What happened?" Jia wiped her tears. "She's sick. She needs me. I can't stay here, pretending nothing else exists." For the first time, Chanwoo's confident mask slipped. He held her hand tighter, his eyes fierce. "Jia, if you walk away now, I might never let you go again." She looked at him, torn in half between the man who had awakened her and the grandmother who had protected her all her life. And she knew a choice was coming, one that would change everything. Jia stood at the door of the mansion with her small bag in hand. Her eyes were red from crying, her body tense with the weight of her decision. She couldn't stay, not when her grandmother needed her. "I have to go," she whispered, refusing to meet Chanwoo's gaze. But his voice came firm, unyielding. "Then I'm going with you." Jia's head snapped up. "What? No, you can't. It's not your responsibility. It is now." Chanwoo cut in, his eyes blazing with a conviction that stole her breath. "If you think I'm going to sit in this mansion while you run back to your grandmother alone, you don't know me at all." Hours later, Jia sat stunned in the leather seat of Chanwoo's private jet. She stared out the window as the city shrank beneath them, the reality of his world pressing against her from every angle. "This is too much," she whispered, twisting her hands in her lap. Chanwoo leaned toward her, his tone softening. "No, Jia, this is the least I can do. You've given me something no one else has. Your honesty, your innocence, your heart. Let me give something back." Her chest tightened, her protests silenced by the sincerity in his voice. She had never seen a man like him, wealthy, famous, untouchable. Yet here he was, crossing worlds just to stand beside her. When they arrived, Jia rushed straight to her grandmother's side. The old woman lay in bed, frail but smiling faintly when she saw her granddaughter. "Child," she whispered, reaching for Jia's hand. "I told you not to why?" But before Jia could respond, Chanwoo stepped forward, his presence filling the small room. He bowed respectfully to the elder, then spoke with quiet determination. "Ma'am, forgive my intrusion, but with your permission, I'd like to take you to the best hospital. You deserve more than this." Jia's grandmother blinked, startled, before chuckling weakly. "Ah, so this is the young man causing my Jia so much confusion." Jia flushed, but before she could protest, Chanwoo had already arranged everything. Within hours, her grandmother was transferred to a private hospital, doctors and nurses attending to her with a level of care Jia had never imagined. That night, Jia sat at her grandmother's bedside, exhausted but relieved. For the first time since the sickness began, she felt her grandmother was truly safe. When she stepped into the hallway, she found Chanwoo waiting. His jacket was draped over his arm, his expression unreadable until his eyes found hers. "You don't have to thank me," he said before she could speak. "I didn't do this to impress you. I did it because anyone you love, I will protect as if they were my own." Gia's throat tightened, tears threatening again. "Why are you doing all this for me?" He stepped closer, his voice low, almost rough. "Because I can't imagine my life without you now. And I won't let you imagine yours without me." Gia's breath caught as his hand brushed hers. No kiss this time, no heat, just a steady promise in his touch. And for the first time, she wondered if Chan-woo wasn't just a dangerous distraction, but the man who might actually be her fate. The hospital room was quiet that evening. Machines hummed softly, and the smell of antiseptic lingered in the air. Gia had stepped out to get tea, leaving her grandmother resting in bed. When the door opened again, it wasn't Gia who entered. It was Chan-woo. He bowed deeply, his expression solemn. "Good evening, ma'am. Forgive me for disturbing you." Her grandmother gave him a knowing look, her eyes sharp despite her frailty. "You are the young man everyone whispers about, the star who makes headlines. Yet here you are, in a hospital room instead of shining on a stage." Chan-woo stepped closer, his voice quiet but firm. "Because nothing matters to me more than your granddaughter." He drew a steadying breath before continuing. "I know I don't deserve her, not yet. She is innocent, honest, untouched by the world I come from. And I am a man with too much noise around me. But for the first time in my life I want something real. I want her." Her grandmother studied him silently, her weathered hands folded on the blanket. "I didn't bring Gia into my home for a game," Chan-woo went on, his voice thick with emotion. "I brought her because I couldn't bear to see her hurt. I kissed her because I couldn't stop myself from loving her. And now, I'm asking you to let me stand by her, not as a fling, not as a distraction, but as a man who wants to build a future with her." His words hung heavy in the air. For once, Chan-woo, the man the world adored, the actor who always had the perfect lines, spoke raw and unpolished. Finally, Gia's grandmother sighed softly, her eyes softening. "You speak like a man who has known loneliness," she murmured. "And I see in your eyes that you care for her." Chan-woo bowed his head, humbled. "But you must understand," she continued, her voice firm. "Gia is not like other women. She is simple, easily wounded, and raised with values that the world has forgotten. If you break her, no amount of wealth or fame can mend her spirit." "I know," he whispered, "and I swear, I would rather break myself than ever harm her." Her grandmother's gaze lingered on him for a long, searching moment. Then slowly she nodded. "Then you have my blessing," she said at last. "Treat her with honor. Love her with patience. And perhaps you may be the man fate has chosen for her." Chan-woo's chest tightened with relief, emotion glistening in his eyes. He bowed deeply once more. "Thank you, ma'am. I will never let you regret this." When Gia returned with the tea, she was surprised to find her grandmother smiling faintly, her hand resting warmly in Chan-woo's. "Child," her grandmother said softly, her voice filled with a kind of peace Gia hadn't heard in a long time. "This young man has asked for my blessing to court you seriously, and I have given it." Gia froze, her heart hammering as her gaze darted between them. "Grandma, you didn't." Her grandmother squeezed her hand. "I trust him. The rest is up to you." Chan-woo's eyes met Gia's across the room. Steady, unwavering, filled with a promise. And in that moment, for the first time, Gia realized this was no longer just a dangerous attraction. This was the beginning of something real. The weeks in the hospital passed quickly, but with every day, Gia's heart grew lighter. Her grandmother grew stronger under the care Chan-woo had arranged. Slowly, the color returned to her cheeks. Her laughter warmed the room again, and soon, she was walking on her own. One morning, Gia wheeled her grandmother into the hospital garden, sunlight spilling over the flowers. Chan-woo was already there, waiting, his eyes soft as they landed on Gia. Her grandmother smiled knowingly. "Child, I am well again. It is time you stopped worrying about me." and started living your own life. Jia glanced at Chan Wu, her chest tightening with emotion. She had fought her feelings, resisted the pull, but now there was no denying it. He had proven himself, not just to her, but to the woman she loved most. And she was ready. A week later, the three of them boarded Chan Wu's jet back to Seoul. This time, Jia didn't feel like an intruder in his world. She sat beside him, her fingers laced with his, her heart steady in its choice. When they landed, the city didn't seem as frightening as before. Seoul's dazzling lights no longer mocked her. They welcomed her, because now she wasn't alone. In the days that followed, Jia and Chan Wu moved openly through the city. Sometimes people whispered, sometimes cameras flashed, but Jia no longer cared. At night, they rode bicycles along the Han River, laughing like children. In the mornings, Chan Wu played soft melodies on the piano, while Jia leaned on his shoulder, her heart brimming with pique. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Chan Wu pulled her close on the balcony of his mansion. His lips brushed her ear as he whispered, "You were the one thing I never expected, Jia, and now, you are the only thing I'll never let go." Jia smiled, her hand resting on his chest, feeling the steady beat of his heart. "And I'll never run from you again." Below them, the city sparkled like 1,000 stars, but neither of them looked down. Their world was here, in each other's arms, safe, certain, and unshakable. Thank you for watching the final episode. Your engagement and encouragement made this series special. Don't forget to subscribe because a brand new story is coming soon.